The Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center, better known as 29 Palms, or sometimes 29 Stumps, has a reputation among Marines as one of the least desirable duty stations. Not only is it remote, but it sits in the middle of the Southern California desert, where summer heat can be brutal. On top of the harsh environment, 29 Palms has earned another reputation, one for strange sightings. Stories of ghosts, unexplained creatures, and bizarre encounters drift out from both the base and the endless desert around it. One Marine spouse learned this firsthand. Back in 1996, her husband was stationed at 29 Palms with 3rd Tanks. They had just moved into an older housing area known as Marine Palms, bringing with them their 2 young sons, her 2 nieces, and the news that she was expecting another baby. 3 weeks after moving in, she woke around 3 a.m. to use the bathroom. As she stood there in the quiet, a man's voice spoke, clear as day, telling her, "Get out." She froze. The voice came again, sharper, angrier. Shaken, she hurried back to the bedroom where her husband was sleeping with their 2 boys and accused him of trying to scare her. But he was still deep asleep. Thinking maybe she was just overtired, she lay back down. 15 minutes later, her nieces, sleeping on the floor beside her, were suddenly screaming. One of them said her hair was moving. The woman looked down and saw the girl's pigtail slowly lifting into the air. Instinct took over. She grabbed both girls and ran to her neighbor's house. She left her husband and sons behind, later telling herself she'd panicked and that her husband probably wouldn't have believed her anyway. But later that same evening, the neighbor woke her up to show her something. The lights in her house were flickering on and off. The next day, after her husband left for work, she went straight to the base chaplain. He came to bless the house. She felt silly, until a week later, the chaplain called her. He had done some digging and found the grim history of the place. About 20 years earlier, a soldier, recently returned from Vietnam, had taken his own life. Right there in that house. If you're a soldier who loves rain, fog, and cold weather, or maybe you're secretly a vampire, Joint Base Lewis, McChord in Washington might be your dream station. Formerly known as Fort Lewis before its 2010 merger with McChord Air Force Base, the northern part of the base has been active since the early 1900s. Many of its oldest buildings were demolished in the early 2000s, but some survived through constant repurposing. One, in particular, has a haunted reputation. The building now housing the JBLM Army Museum. Over a century ago, when the base was still called Camp Lewis, the building began life as Green Park, a massive recreation facility. It had everything: concession stands, theaters, a barber shop, a shooting gallery, and even a hotel, the Red Shield Inn. The base commander, Major General Green, built it to keep soldiers from wandering into less respectable establishments off base. But after World War I ended, the facility quickly fell into disuse. By 1938, most of it was torn down, except the hotel. In 1927, during the filming of a patriotic silent movie called The Patent Leather Kid, the cast and crew stayed there. According to legend, a member of the film crew was murdered in one of the second-floor rooms. Afterward, staff claimed they saw a man dressed like a cowboy roaming the halls, looking either sorrowful or angry. Some think cowboy may have been a misunderstanding. He might have been a World War I soldier wearing a campaign hat. Whatever the case, strange noises, malfunctioning alarms, and cold spots plagued the building for decades. That IT served as guest housing until 1972, when asbestos made it uninhabitable. In 1973, it was gutted and turned into the military museum. But the hauntings didn't stop. A 1987 article claimed 3 priests performed an exorcism there. They allegedly encountered the spirit of a man who blamed himself for his own death. They told him he was forgiven, and he faded away. But whether this actually happened is uncertain. There's no official record from the Catholic Church. Even in 2011, staff reported unexplained events, especially on the second floor. One night, in 1999, 2 MPs responded to repeated alarm trips at the museum. Each time, they found the building locked and empty. Later, one of them, John, felt an oppressive chill near the gate. His girlfriend, June, visited the same spot later and was so overcome with fear that she ran back to the car. As they drove away, she thought she saw a figure in the museum's upper window. Reports of strange activity there continue to this day. Located on the western outskirts of Tokyo, Yokota Air Base is home to both US and Japanese forces. I personally spent time there in 2012, staying in one of the tall apartment towers near the flight line, possibly the same ones in this story. Yokota has its share of ghost tales, many tied to tragic deaths. In the late 1970s, Tech Sergeant John Jernebro returned home to a scene of horror. Inside his apartment were the bodies of his 4-year-old son, John, and 3-year-old Kimiko Russo, the daughter of a fellow Air Force family. His wife, Lucy, was also there, bleeding from self-inflicted wounds but alive. The children had drowned in the bathtub. Lucy reportedly claimed she'd been possessed and had no memory of her actions. Other tragedies, particularly suicides from the towers, add to the belief that these buildings are haunted. Residents report shadowy figures, voices calling for help, and knocks that lead children to see apparitions by the bathroom. One tower is said to host the spirit of a teenage boy who jumped in the 1980s. Rooftop access was later sealed, but people still hear a young man's voice shouting from above. In 2012, a woman named Alicia moved into a garden unit on base. She noticed beds stripped bare, crashing noises in the night, and kitchen cabinets flung open by morning. When her husband deployed, she realized the events had nothing to do with him. Her questions to other residents uncovered a pattern. Many had similar stories. She even started a private Facebook group, the Yokota Ghost Hunter Club, which remains active today. Base chaplain Lance Brown and his wife, Karen, have performed many home cleanses for residents, regardless of religion. While they say some cleanses are more about easing emotional distress, they've also felt genuine fear, describing an almost tangible darkness during certain visits. One family, the Popes, called the Browns after their 3-year-old daughter, began seeing monsters, and her mother witnessed strange lights in the house. The cleanse didn't immediately solve the child's sleep problems, but the family felt more at peace. The Browns say they received more requests for cleansings at Yokota in 1 year than during their entire previous posting in Kansas. Since we've been talking about Yokota, I'll share one of my own memories from there, a near miss that could have ended very badly. In 2012, my unit went to Yokota to complete parachute jumps for our gold jump wings. We needed daytime and nighttime jumps, with and without gear, from both fixed wing, C-130, and rotary wing, CH-46, aircraft. The day jumps went smoothly, aside from a few guys getting motion sickness thanks to a particularly aggressive pilot. The night jumps were another matter. High winds were pushing the safe limits for our parachutes, which aren't like sport skydiving rigs. Military static line chutes give you minimal control. You basically hope for a straight-down landing. That night, the wind didn't cooperate. They misread its direction, and when we jumped, we were dragged hard across the ground. Some landed on rough tarmac and had their uniforms and skin shredded like sandpaper burns. While we were still recovering, another stick of jumpers was in the air. As they circled, a second aircraft came in for landing, on a collision course with their C-130. At the last moment, the pilot dove beneath the other plane, narrowly avoiding disaster. When my buddies came back down, they were laughing nervously, realizing the last thing they'd been doing, before almost dying, was playing patty cake to pass the time. After that, we all returned to our supposedly haunted tower for what you could call a good night's sleep.